You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, a promise that November's climate summit will be the most inclusive COP yet, as the government reveals the main themes for the meeting. Slow progress on fast fashion. 250 of the world's biggest brands and retailers are criticised for not being open enough about their environmental practices. And how a new type of tyre could help cut air pollution and microplastics. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show, where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. Now, in Glasgow in November, a 12-day summit will take place, and the decisions that are made there will affect the future of the whole planet. World leaders, activists, business representatives and scientists will all be attending COP26, the most important climate meeting in 6 years. And today we heard the government's latest ambitions for that summit. Young people will interview government ministers on stage as part of plans to make COP26 the most inclusive ever, while other themes include nature, gender, adaptation and cities. Well, Boris Johnson has been questioned by MPs today about the government's plans for COP. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, was listening. So, John, what did he say?
More questions than answers, really. Quite tetchy exchanges between the Prime Minister and, indeed, particularly some Conservative MPs on the committee, Philip Dunn, Caroline Nokes and Tom Tugendhat in particular. He was asked how the government intended to meet all its pledges on climate change. He was even asked by Caroline Nokes how is the COP summit going to be gender specific. He kept stressing, however, on measures to tackle climate change, that he was determined to keep bills low for energy consumers. This is a government determined to keep bills low, he said at one point. Eco-friendly heat pumps, he said, cost £10,000. That's a lot of money for ordinary people, he said. It was pretty spiky and spicy at times. At one point, Tom Tugendhat, no love lost there, said, "I'm interested in your answers to my questions, not ones that you wish I had asked," he said. So we didn't learn much specifically from the Prime Minister there, and it was all a bit awkward and a bit spicy.
John, thank you. Let's take a look now at the day's other climate news. And campaigners want the UK to invest in new technologies to recover raw materials from e-waste. A new study by the not-for-profit organisation Material Focus suggests 379,000 kilograms of materials like gold, silver and platinum are found each year in electricals which have been thrown away rather than recycled. It estimates a proportion of these metals, worth at least £13 million, can't be retrieved through the UK's existing mining processes. A river in the Lake District will be re-wiggled to reduce flooding and restore wildlife populations. The National Trust has begun work to recreate a series of bends and smaller channels in Goldril Beck, which has been straightened over hundreds of years. It's hoped that this will slow the flow of water downstream and reconnect the river with a floodplain, allowing the wider landscape to absorb the water. The Woodland Trust says it will phase out using plastic tree guards at its sites by the end of this year in an effort to be more sustainable. The charity have been trialling a wide range of plastic-free alternatives, including cardboard and wool, to see how effective they are. Tree guards are used to prevent deer and rabbits from grazing on saplings in the early stages of growth. And a French company has developed a robot that eats rubbish from the sea. The electric-powered boat, called the Jellyfishbot, uses a net to collect plastic bottles, bags and other waste found in harbours that human cleaners can't reach. It's already in operation in 15 French ports and is being exported to Singapore, Japan and Norway. More than 100 billion pieces of clothing are made every year around the world, and the fashion industry is responsible for around 10% of global emissions. But it can be really hard to know what shops are doing to protect the environment or improve their sustainability. The Fashion Transparency Index ranks 250 of the world's largest brands and retailers, and in a moment we'll be hearing about their latest findings. But first, here's your guide to fast fashion in 60 seconds. Well, let's bring in Sarah Ditti, Global Policy Director at Fashion Revolution, an activism movement founded after the Rana Plaza factory collapse in 2013. Sarah Ditti, hello to you. The impact of fast fashion is being talked about more, isn't it? But how much are big brands doing to try to reduce their environmental impact?
Well, overall, the standout finding of the Fashion Transparency Index this year is that the world's biggest fashion brands are moving too slowly on transparency, and that needs to change, especially when it comes to really important issues such as textile waste, carbon emissions, and fair pay for workers in the supply chain. And I think it's important to highlight that most big brands are failing to disclose their supply chain carbon emissions, despite having made big public commitments to go net zero over the past couple of years. And we really want to encourage brands to be more transparent about this, especially given the urgency of the climate crisis.
Well, yes, and is that purely voluntary at this stage? Because I noticed that one number that really stood out in your report is that 95% of brands don't disclose how much water they use. I mean, how much pressure is on them to be transparent about statistics like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not an obligation on brands to disclose their water footprint, even though we know that clothing production uses a huge amount of water in areas where there is severe water scarcity. But you can't manage what you don't measure. And this is true for lots of other environmental impacts too. The legislation just isn't there yet to ensure and require brands to be open and transparent about the serious environmental impacts they are creating in the global fashion value chain.
Would you like to see legislation, or do you think that consumers can provide the pressure needed?
We need both. As part of this research process, we meet with big brands, and whenever we do, we ask them what's going to make them change. And they always tell us that when their customers ask them to do more, they will. And even if they get 100 emails from their customers, this makes a big difference. So whether you shop with certain brands or not, we should all be using our voice to challenge big brands to do more about their social and environmental impacts. But tougher legislation is also crucial. And in the index, we've seen a number of big brands refuse to be transparent over the past few years of doing this research. And we know that legislation is the only thing that's going to make them move to do the right thing.
Sarah Ditti, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Now, you're probably very familiar with the pollution associated with exhaust fumes from petrol and diesel cars. But tyres could actually be doing more harm to our health and the environment. Now, producing tyres in the first place has a huge climate impact, from deforestation to the use of fossil fuels to make synthetic rubber. And as vehicles move around, the tyres gradually wear down, producing particulate pollution. Well, some estimates put that pollution at around 1,000 times higher than what comes out of a car's exhaust pipe. Now, this means more air pollution, especially in cities. And as tyres are used, they also produce tiny plastic polymers. And according to one study, around 28% of microplastic pollution in the oceans comes from tyres. Tyre pollution is an even bigger problem for electric vehicles. Batteries make them heavier, putting more pressure on the wheels. And EVs have instant torque, meaning much faster acceleration, wearing tyres more quickly. Well, as part of an initiative to clean up London's air, TfL launched the London Freight Lab Innovation Challenge. Sustainable tyre developer ENSO was one of the winners, and they've created what they say is a revolutionary new tyre that increases the range of electric vehicles and reduces pollution. Well, their founder and chief executive, Gunnlaugur Erlendsson, joins me now. So tell us a little bit about this new tyre of yours. How does it differ from a traditional tyre?
Thank you very much for having us. We're very proud here to be here representing Enso. So we've developed a tyre that is energy efficient, durable, and more sustainable than its counterparts from the wider tyre industry. And we're doing this basically for the reasons you demonstrate. Not only are tyre pollution now more particulate matter in our air than comes from tailpipes, but we also have this problem that we are simply increasing the amount of microplastic pollution that is in our oceans and in the air we breathe. Our tyres are designed to have more bio-based and low-carbon raw materials. They're designed to be more energy efficient, so we can also extend the range of those electric cars. And we're partnered now with DPD as part of London Freight Lab, which is an opportunity to test our tires on DPD's electric vans, which is an initiative supported by TfL and the Mayor of London. And this not only gives us an opportunity both to reduce DPD's environmental impact, but also giving their EV drivers more range for each drive they have.
And what have the challenges been in developing an environmentally friendly tyre?
I think one of the biggest development hurdles has actually not been on the tyre development side, but simply convincing people that there's a better way forward. But we're very fortunate. We recently secured investment from the UK government, actually, and we now actually sourced over 800 private investors on our Crowdcube platform on Crowdcube, which is still open and open until Friday. And ultimately, it's building these partnerships that are very different from how the rest of the tire industry operates. We were very collegiate. We have collaborations now with major major EV car makers and major EV fleets. And this is simply a demonstration that the industry, the wider automotive industry, sees this as a problem and wants to solve it. While the rest of the tire industry, I would say, is fairly reluctant to even admit it has a problem.
Good lawyer, Erlandson. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it from us for today. Tomorrow, how using nature can help tackle the climate crisis, from super seagrass to kelp forests and oysters. You can find out more tomorrow here on The Daily Climate Show. Thanks for watching. See you then.